We'll start.
Yeah.
Very warm good evening to all the construction professionals who have logged in, and good evening to the speaker of the day, Engineer P. Srinivas Reddy. Again, he has agreed to come on the platform the second time. The first time it was on repair, specifically on repair, and it was a very interesting presentation. So thank you, sir, for again accepting our invitation. And along with Indian Concrete Institute, Hyderabad Center, and Ramco Cements, we are having this talk on a very important topic, because concrete and structural repairs being variable, there are so many factors which are affecting it. So the thing is that there is bound to be differences between the stakeholders, and today the speaker is going to talk about those differences and how to resolve them. Let me just take a brief introduction of Engineer Srinivas Reddy. Engineer and advocate. In fact, he is both a civil engineer as well as he has taken up law. P.S. Reddy, located at Hyderabad, India, of Prime Law Associates. He has been an engineer with prior experience in construction industry, specialization in cement chemistry, concrete technology, construction chemical applications, repair and rehabilitation of engineering structures, and also involved in techno-commercial litigation. So the thing is that whenever it comes such kind of there is always a kind of techno-commercial aspect which is there, and he has an in-depth understanding of construction contracts, because contract is where we have all the specifications and all that is needed. So he has an in-depth understanding of contracts, project management, remedying construction defects, and preparing and negotiating large orders. Legal practice includes time-related claims and litigation, legal advice and counsel service regarding the contracting process, payment enforcement, administrative and scope claims and litigation, and counseling and transactional services to the construction industry. In fact, this is one of the most important services that the construction industry needs. And since he is having expertise in all these areas, ranging from building materials to repair and rehabilitation to concrete technology, so I'm sure that he would be able to give an objective opinion on the challenges that is befalling the industry or the concrete itself. Nearly 25 years of experience in engineering and also law practice background gives him understanding and of the needs and concerns of client in construction, and he has appeared in tribunals in appellate litigation and all construction spectrum of the construction industry, from owners, contractors, subcontractors, stakeholders. Primary area of focus includes construction law, real estate regulation rules, international trade and economic law, arbitration, chamber counseling, and appellate litigation. And he has been a key industry and key speaker and an industry player in all these areas. Since he has also worked with construction chemicals, cement of various companies at different responsible and leadership position, and he has also been involved in diffusion of knowledge on concrete technology. So that's really interesting that we have a speaker today who would be able to talk to us about the various aspects about the techno legal issues. And let me also tell you that being a civil engineer and at the same time being a lawyer, an advocate, are equally challenging, because the kind of variables that are there in the concrete industry, and to bring it and make a non-civil engineer understand the dynamics of concrete is a challenge by itself. Because of his varied experience in all this, I'm sure that he would be able to throw a lot of insights on these areas. So today's webinar is the 42nd webinar that we are having in the series of webinars that we have been organizing on various topics. Yesterday we had a panel discussion on various problems in concreting and how to resolve them from a practitioner's perspective, from an academician's perspective, as well as we had testing perspective also, because when you look at concrete, we are not only looking at its usage perspective, the differences in testing is also this. So yesterday we had a webinar which was highlighting on all that. So Ramco Cements believes in diffusing this knowledge on concrete and construction related topics to the construction professionals, and that's the idea that we had to engage the construction professionals on various topics. And in this regard, we also had the support from various professional bodies: Association of Consulting Civil Engineers, Bangalore, Mysore chapter, Indian Concrete Institute, Hyderabad Center, and like this we had the support from the experts as well, because when experts come and talk about these subjects, it gives that much authenticity, as well as they are able to give the perspective also from their side. So we had professionals from academics, from industry, as well as from different places, ranging from West Bengal, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, New Delhi, Mumbai, and from different industries, ranging from ready-mix concrete to smart cities, to general issues that the construction faces. So we had a combination of all these topics. So Ramco Cements, due to its interaction with various construction professionals, from individual house builders to large projects, we had the exposure on different types of concrete and different types of applications. So based on this, we have been able to customize cement. So we have 12 different brands of cement, based on how the concrete is being made, where is it being used, for which we have a questionnaire which highlights the concrete grade, the workability, the chemical admixtures that is being used, what is the slump retention that is required. So all these parameters are being studied by our mace engineer who visits the site, and based on that, we are able to recommend the right type of cement. So with a 16.5 million tons per annum capacity, and we are shortly going to hit 20 million tons per annum because of our expansion projects at Kolimagundla, and we have our grinding unit and expansion project at our Kolaghat unit, Vizag unit. So we are shortly going to hit 20 million tons per annum, the capacity. And we always believe that the customer is at the center of our decision-making process. And that's why this perspective of value addition, as far as the usage of product is being concerned, is being driven by our top management. And it's a coordination between the field engineers, the feedback that the construction professionals are giving, the research and development, our Ramco Research and Development Center, which does number of trials on concrete mixers, and of course the manufacturing team, all together with the feedback, we have been able to customize cement. And that is how we are able to understand the concerns of the construction professionals. So with those few words, let me once again invite the speaker of the day, Engineer Advocate P. Srinivas Reddy, to talk about an important aspect of the construction professionals from a practical perspective. And I am sure that he would be able to highlight the cases, the case studies which he has already experienced. And from that, we would be able to learn a lot of things. Over to you, sir, and welcome Engineer Advocate P. Srinivas Reddy to this webinar. Over to you, sir, for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Dear my brother and sister civil engineers, indeed it's a privilege to make a presentation on a little bit unconventional subject, techno-legal issues in concrete construction and structural repair. The objective of this presentation is to make realize a person from a known position to an unknown position. This is where an advocate will, as the officer of a court, will assist the judge taking through a facts to reach the truth, what is not known to the other party or to the world. What is there in public domain is already there on the case record. So I have chosen what you call the tagline is realizing known to unknown. The objective is, since it is techno-legal, legal point is to mitigate risk and avoid uncertainty. So I think in next 60 minutes or so, running through about 115 slides, I'll make a proper justice to my title and to the organizers who have given this opportunity. And let me also, it's my duty as this professional body, Indian Concrete Institute Hyderabad Center is associated, and I hope our ICI All India President, Secretary General and Vice President South has joined this webinar, national webinar. I welcome them, and also my colleagues, General Council members and Executive Council, Executive Committee members, and I recognize their presence in this national webinar. Friends, as I said, we are passing through today. The topic what we have chosen is to deal with the new challenges in the construction industry, because distress turns the world upside down. Today it is a virus or a microorganism, but if you see from civilization, man-made disasters, natural calamities, probably that is how the shelter for a mankind and this profession of civil engineering has started. You have to protect yourself from weathers like sun, rain, and other aspects, and more so this type of cyclones. Now I think a cyclone is hitting the western part of the country, like Maharashtra or Gujarat, and earlier about a week or 10 days back it has hit eastern part, Orissa, then I think West Bengal, and it went to Bangladesh. So this presentation is a picture, means techno-legal issues will give a clear picture of science and intent thereby to understand and carry challenging professional opportunities while carrying risky projects, trying to mitigate risk. That is what I have told. Then law, what is the role of law in construction industry? Because various stakeholders, more so service providers are there, building material suppliers are there in the supply chain, so which I will be taking in next 60 minutes. But as an introduction, I am telling, law able to do what technology needs to be done for societal good. The technology can do good and bad, like nuclear weapons. But law will prohibit not what is good, it has to be done. What is not good, it should not be done. So that is, please understand, law, technology, when it is developed by mankind, it is directionless, a directionless missile. But when law come into picture, then it will be controlled. The technology will be controlled. Like social media today, we don't have any control on it. Maybe cyber law is there, Information Technology Act 2000 is there, but still it is a gray area. Like that, when civil engineering started, it started as uncontrolled with a lot of creativity, innovation, and need-based, all these things. But suddenly, when we have seen a lot of disasters, collapses, litigations, disputes, then somewhere a legal framework has to be brought in. So that is called the play of law. Then techno-legal, it is a perfect technique to strengthen societal needs. Civil engineering professionals, their knowledge and technology through which as they will provide goods and services. If they are manufacturers, they will provide goods. If they are service providers, they provide services. That's how there is a large stakeholders are there in this supply chain. What we call is construction industry. But coming to our industry, there are certain challenges are there. Uniqueness is there. Unlike we are called brick and mortar industry, a conventional, a traditional, a conservative industry. Unlike software, where rapid young blood is there, fresh ideas are there. I have evaluated the reasons may be different generations are working in a same project. Adoption of professionalism in engineering, technology, management, best practices of management, and legal provisions are to certain extent missing. These are my observations. I am not quoting from any textbook. It is purely my observations of 27, 28 years of industry association, various capacities. And conservatism towards creative approaches. This is where we are not able to compete globally. And legal professionals like us who are domain specific, we are known in this 21st century as hope providers. Again, I am repeating, hope providers. Hope is trust for tomorrow, trust to take challenging assignments. Where to start today presentation? I just, in fact, today, after looking at the Hindu paper yesterday and today, then I thought, let me revamp my presentation, putting what's happening in western part of India, that is the cyclone. These are the barrels towards Mumbai. So I just took some time and want to make more relevant presentation. And incidentally, I was going through yesterday Hindu. In page 7, a beautiful article written by a bureaucrat, a former governor of West Bengal, Gopal Krishna Gandhi. The title is A New Architecture in Earthquake-Prone Areas. Indeed, though it is a news article written by a bureaucrat, but it highlights how the legal regime entered into this country. So I just take 1 minute of time to highlight a couple of points from here. Scientists' vision of what humanity may encounter. And there was a conversation, a telephonic conversation between this author when he is working in our foreign affairs ministry. Our president, then president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, whom a scientist president, then he became people's president. Suddenly there was a call from Rashtrapati ji to this author, and he said, now you are going to Iceland. Please ask them how their work in earthquake anticipation goes. You know, Iceland is volcanically active. Then after the conversation, the author concluded how the political leadership, if a scientist is heading, creative engagement with what President Kalam would call core competency. Civil engineering should have a core competency to overcome these natural disasters and build structures without any technical tragedies. So, my presentation today is neither a fiction nor a fantasy. I will start the presentation with this small.
Because we have already covered 20 minutes, so I think because since you have number of slides or more, I think we can.
No, that's true. But introduction, I thought let me.
That was a very good one, very good point that you made, especially how a non-civil engineer,
yeah, in an elegant manner. Because what happens is certain words are taboo in our country. Correct. The moment you say legal, our constitutional rights, immediately people get agitated, and they think that he is a revolutionary or a fundamentalist or a radicalist like that. So nothing wrong in it. An engineer moving from entrepreneurship to advocacy, things like that. So now I have committed almost from last 10 years in educating society on legal matters. I appear in various forums, in the conferences, seminars, and even in TV channels. In Telugu, it is called Nitya Jeevitaniki Nyaya Salahalu. Means for daily lively issues, providing legal solutions. So, like rehab technology, I started as a young engineer way back in 2002. I have started this ANE Infra Legal apart from Prime Law Associates. The Prime Law Associates is a general law firm, but whereas this ANE Infra Legal is owned by me. A stands for advocate, and N means and, E stands for engineer, and infrastructure legal issues. So it is a unique organization in this country. Very rarely, to my knowledge, I think in this country, such organization headed by an engineer, a management graduate, and a practicing advocate. And the objective is to provide end-to-end services protecting clients' interest in housing, industrial, and infrastructure sectors. Friends, here I just want to bring 3 vital cases which are widely reported even in vernacular newspapers, not only in legal journals, so that I will draw the attention in how our civil engineering professions were under threat and there is no unity. So I'll just take a minute time. Recently, means about 6 months back, Supreme Court in a judgment has told to all high courts in India not to take disciplinary action against judicial officers from in subordinate courts, quoting merely on the ground that they had passed wrong judicial orders. In fact, one of the judges, Judge Gupta, challenged his Trinith, saying, not one of us who had held judicial office can claim that we never passed a wrong order. And the judgment concluded Disciplinary proceedings should not be initiated merely on the basis that a wrong order has been passed by the judicial office or merely on the ground that judicial order is incorrect. So the Supreme Court has given a blanket protection to all the judges in this country, telling that a judicial officer should not be exposed to disciplinary action merely because he passed order against settled law norms. Friends, that is how a profession is protected in judiciary. So the profession advocates also, even we lose a case, we don't lose anything. Same case with medical profession also. But a civil engineer, if he knowingly or unknowingly commits a mistake and by any chance if that structure fails or there is a loss of life, immediately there is a criminal prosecution is happening, which I will be showing in these slides. And second judgment is reviewing his own past judgment. So I will cut down a little bit legal jargon of this case, but the essence of the judgment is that we will review our own judgments. But whereas in our civil engineering profession, we cannot review our own reports, whether it is a material testing report or maybe a design or construction methodology. Someone else has to do it when it is in challenged. So peer review is only for academic purpose or for printing purpose, journalism. But when it comes to expert opinion, a third person, an unknown person from within the profession or outside the profession may review it. So here again, our profession is a threat. And third is unresolved questions, no remedy for complaint, victimization is a popularly well reported case where Chief Justice of India's the domestic help has made some allegations. So I don't want to get into that subject, of course, because now the case is closed and things like that. So what I mean to say is, if you compare with other professionals other than engineers, you say chartered accountants, advocates, medical professionals, they have all having a strong backup. Like advocates, we have Bar Council of India, bar associations. Even for that matter, bureaucrats, they have associations like IAS Officers Association, IPS Officers Association. So in the absence of Engineering Council of India, we don't have a proper norms for our profession first. Forget about the standards and our codal provisions, things like that. So if we want to protect ourselves, we should have an Engineering Council of India in place. So now coming to why this techno-legal is to raise confidence in legal system, because worldwide our judiciary is well known. Of course, we have to take a balance between justice hurried is justice buried and justice delayed is justice denied. So out of these two, we have to take a middle path. And what happens is, if we adopt certain erotic systems, like whether we will go to court or whether we'll make a claim, all these things, first is our justice is failed. Though I am right, but I am not taking a first step to file a case. So forever the justice is buried and injustice is winning because of our inability not to take action on the culprit. Thereby, especially in our supply chain, subcontractors, service providers, small service providers like labor contractors, then material suppliers, these people, their money is held up. So that leads to huge economic losses. And thereby, what happens is the progress of the project gets affected, and the money, the taxpayers' money, is held up in these litigations here and there. This I have seen very closely when I am working with national highway projects across 11 states in 35 projects. So the objective of this presentation of techno-legal is only to gain confidence of the stakeholders that legal framework is there, position of law is there, rights are being created, but only thing is, as stakeholders, we have to exercise those rights judiciously, not to just harass somebody or to waste our time. So this presentation, again, the same format normally I adopt is showing natural and technical disasters in the form of photographs, the construction and repair in a holistic manner. What is technology meaning? I think last time a few people have, if somebody is there, one or two slides may be repetitive. To a large extent, I have seen that the presentation of my previous repair and rehabilitation of concrete structures and today's presentation, to a large extent, I have minimized the overlapping of it. And knowledge management, I am using knowledge management. It is not the technical knowledge. Knowledge and management, these two words, KM. There is a big worldwide KPO, knowledge processing outsourcing is a very, very big industry. And techno-legal, what is the industry practices? I'll try to cover whatever possible in this short period. So this presentation again divided into two parts. One is related to new construction, that to be very specific to concrete, usage of concrete as a material. Second is the rehabilitation, what are the issues and technical legal issues arriving there. So friends, as I said, looking at what's happening last few decades in our country, natural disasters like cyclones, what they refer worldwide is hurricane or typhoons, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, mudsliding, of course, avalanches. They are there in snow areas like Everest, Mount Everest, things like that, not widely in the Indian subcontinent. So these are natural disasters, and as an engineer, as a techno-legal person, or to give a safe home, already Government of India has created some techno-legal regime. I will take through that in a next few slides. So this is just a pictorial of what is a cyclone, and after an earthquake, what is the damage will happen. And tsunami, we have experienced, in fact, our organizers have seen the tsunami in western coast, this Nagapatnam in 2004. And these pictures are very often seen. I think even last week we have seen, last week or 10 days back, we have seen this video viral happening in Calcutta airport. And this is how even a good star hotels or good construction, if because of flooding this happens. And I think we have seen floods in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and in Hyderabad in 1908 the floods came, and the then Nizam has taken the help of the Mokshakunda Vishwesharaya, Bharat Ratna Sir Mokshakunda Vishwesharaya, and he created a city, Hyderabad, of lakes and flood-free Hyderabad. And this is how the mud this sliding will happen. And then what is the solution for all these disasters? Again, it is civil engineering. The rest all are only augmenting services, whether you talk about software and other things, electronics or communications, disaster management. Of course, disaster management is also a part and parcel of civil engineering. So I don't want to get into civil engineering. Everyone knows about it. And fundamentally, as I said, two challenges for as a civil engineer. One is first is how to design and build new structures that are durable. Second is how to maintain, repair, and extend the service of existing structures. In the process, certain structures has structural deficiencies or whatever distresses are premature. Some of the factors are structural deficiencies, erroneous design, substandard quality materials, poor workmanship, inadequate supervision, non-compliance with technical standards, etc. End up in circumstances like demolish, rebuild, or repair and rehabilitation of the distressed structural element. So here, these are all only perceptions. But who will establish it behind reasonable doubt? Is it erroneous design, or the substandard quality, or non-compliance with technical standards? And what is technical standard? So these are all in the gambit of trial in court or adjudicating maybe before an arbitrator. So friends, here I am just posing a challenge, or what we call is passionate professionals. Routine structures can be done by anybody. 1 year experience can be converted into 30 years doing the same job. Same type of structures being designed, constructed. But these passionate professionals, why do they work? For money? No. For success, fame, honor, self-realization? Yes. Then recognition? Yes. Exhibiting talent? Yes. Innovation and creating new type of homes. Sometimes they create homes which are green buildings or which are economically what you call low cost, or sometimes they are prone to or they are resistant to earthquake or resistant to wind, like that. These are challenging projects. That's how this subject is not only for civil engineers, more to professionals who want to become champions and leaders in their chosen career. And as I said, the presentation revolves around two. The tagline is taking a person from known to unknown, and second is avoiding uncertainty and mitigating risk. So what is these two keywords is uncertainty. Just is the only legal dictionary words I have taken. That is, uncertainty means doubt, hesitation, skepticism, suspicion, mistrust. Uncertainty in civil engineering related is falling short of certainty to an almost lack of knowledge, and we are not sure about the outcome or the result, like what now medical field is facing, like vaccine for coronavirus. So there is uncertainty in terms of time, in terms of the success, in terms of the trials, in terms of the cost, because they are not, knowledge is not there available readily. Same case with civil engineers. If they want to do a 200 floor high-rise structure with wind, with earthquake, still they are evolving. Those technologies are evolving. So uncertainty. Next comes is, if it is uncertain, then it is a dangerous. So such projects better not to take as a regular project, but take it as a pilot project. You take it as a pilot project, and results are only experimental. Don't avoid it. See, a layman may avoid, but when you are legally equipped, legally knowledgeable, then your agreement should be that, okay, I am taking the risk of this unknown, but I will do it with a understanding that success is fine, failure don't drag me to court. But risk means exposure to danger and possibility of loss and damage. In management also, risk management is there. Risk mitigation is a worldwide business schools will teach. But to my knowledge, I never come across a literature on uncertainty management or managing uncertainty scenarios. So again, technology means it can be defined as knowledge, products, processes, methods, systems in creating goods or services. In simple terms, the technology is the way we do. For example, we are talking about construction technology, concrete technology, building technology, or bridge technology, segmental bridge construction technology. So this is nothing but knowledge, products, processes, methods, systems. Then coming to legal, the meaning is a simple definition. Legal means related to law. Then second is, what is law? Means what is permitted. Like today, a person cannot move without a mask in public places. So that is, after this corona is over, then person is permitted to move without these protective measures. So you have to identify, understand what is permitted, what is not permitted in the technology also. So it is like a game rules defining correct procedure or behavior in a profession. Like rules will change from profession to profession, game to game. Cricket rules cannot be implemented in football. Football rules cannot be implemented in basketball. And coming to a larger one, it is a system of rules which a particular country or a community recognizes as for a regulation the actions of its members and which it may enforce by imposition of penalties. This law will vary from country to country, state to state, one gram panchayat to another gram panchayat also. And self-regulation phase, as a citizen, educated person, or one profession, self-regulation is there, but they are time and again breaching that one. Like as I was telling about social media, time and again there are fake news and other things. Then government may encroach and they may bring up a law. So when self-regulation fails, state steps in. State means here the government. The word state means government. Steps in to regulate, thereby bringing laws and regulatory authorities also. And this is a classic example for our builders and contractor friends also. Somehow delayed projects, cost overruns, and there is a lot of ambiguity in definitions about selling area, then built up area, carpet area, like that. Then we were being forced to undergo through a law that is called REDA, Real Estate Regulatory Authority, and that act, and it is implemented in 2000 from 2017 onward. And not only our profession, in others also, like when software is evolving, usage of information technology, emails and other things, then in the year 2000, the then Vajpayee government has brought Information Technology Act. Subsequently, our lot of large players are coming into the country, and insurance has become a part and parcel of our investment, and also the healthcare, all these things. Then they bought IRDA. Same case with the telephones. When from landline people moved to mobiles and all these things, then big players came. Then FDIs came into the picture. A lot of multinationals started in India. Then TRAI came into the picture. So now social media also, for time being, it is right now a self-regulation. Like if you are observing the Trump versus the Twitter, so probably we don't know. Political leadership may take a decision to monitor and to regulate these social media also. course, right now they are under Cyber Act and Information Technology Act. So now, friends, this booklet is a very simple booklet because the building a new techno-legal regime for a safe India, again prepared by Ministry of Home Affairs. Please try to understand, this is not a document prepared by any professional body. Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, as a part of National Disaster Management. Of course, here again, Ministry of Urban Employment and Poverty Alleviation, Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council, a part of Government of India's initiative. The reason behind, the background behind is, during last, as I said, in 1 decade, earthquakes like Uttarakasi in 1991, Latur in 1993, Bhuj in 2001. Within a decade, 3 earthquakes, of course, many earthquakes might have come, but the severity and loss of life and property has happened essentially in these 3 earthquakes, and this has made the government a largest democracy with so much of population. At that point of time, I think our country's population is about 100 crores. So then what they thought is, are our construction practices are earthquake resistant? Or even if our Bureau of Indian Standards are there for seismic resistant, are our stakeholders are following? So then they made it mandatory. They made it compulsory. That's how techno-legal regime entered into our profession for safer India. Then goals of this techno-legal regime is, one is, new buildings are to be designed and constructed with proper intervention, taking care for safety against natural hazards in urban areas and rural areas, so that unsafe buildings are added to the huge existing stock of unsafe buildings. No unsafe buildings should be constructed. By adopting this techno-legal regime, which is a document prepared by Ministry of Home Affairs. And what about unsafe buildings already constructed? So these has to be upgraded. That is the second objective. Second goal is to safety of buildings in public sector by retrofitting techniques and encouraging similar action regarding buildings in private sector also. It is not only public sector, government, even individually owned buildings also, if they are not meeting the compliances, forcefully, they have to follow by this techno-legal regime by doing retrofitting. So ultimately, there is a model town planning legislation, zonal regulations, development control, building regulation and bylaws. This techno-legal regime revisited some of the existing our codal provisions, our practices, also how our model codes, model town planning and all these things were revisited and revamped and amended, and whenever necessary, certain government orders or advisories are given, like the way we are now, this lockdown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and unlock 1 were being given. So now this entire thing is for a planned development and growth. As I said, in this whole process, state government is the competent authority to pass an act through passed by assembly. There will be central act also passed by the act of parliament. Then implementing agencies are local bodies, like in Hyderabad it is the GHMC, Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation. Like that, in all metropolitan cities they have got corporations. In the small towns, tier 2, tier 3, they have municipalities. In villages, it is Gram Panchayat. So, whatever construction, not only meeting the civil engineering requirements, end user requirements, Vastu complaints, but also these parameters also. What are these parameters? Means Model Town and Country Planning Act 1960. Of course, from time to time it is amended, revised like that. So there are certain guidelines are there in that one. And in 1997, Vulnerability Atlas of India was being prepared with an objective. 3 types of atlases of India, maps of India is prepared. One is for earthquake, second is for cyclone, third is for flood hazard. So these are the seismic zones in India. This is for cyclones, and this is for floods and like that. And development, control, regulation, and bylaws. Here they have used certain keywords. Of course, practicing engineers and construction professionals in large construction companies, they are well aware about these things, and for them it looks very elementary also. But for the completion of the presentation, I thought let me present it. So registration with qualification and duties of professionals are defined. Structural engineer qualification and construction management agency, quality audit, same case with architect, then geotechnical agency, town planner, developer, then owner developer has to appoint a registered professional. From the and they should take the permission from a competent authority. As I said, competent authority varies from where our project is located, whether it is in Gram Panchayat or in the municipality or corporation. And so it is there is a larger responsibility towards structural engineer on record and advocate on record once he is appointed. So these are all like technical words, means not technical words, these are all legal words like advocate on record, we will say. Once we sign the Wakalatnama, the client gives the case to us, then we say I am advocate on record. So like that, here it is the structural engineer on record, architect on record, irrespective of their differences in their what you call financial differences or commercial differences or not competency differences, but as long as he is on record, he cannot discontinue the service abruptly, and it has to come to a logical conclusion by giving no objection certificate. So the projects, the stakeholders should understand here that even if they want to disassociate also, there is a due process to follow it. It's not that not lifting the phone call or not asking, not attending the sites, things like that, or not issuing the drawings like that. So these are certain standards. Of course, everyone knows about it, but as I said, for completion of the presentation, we keep these things. So certain things like wind loads, then cyclone, wind storm protection, earthquake protection, landslide hazards. So depending upon the cause of the natural disaster, then the owner of the project can sue the designer. Have you followed these things? So he cannot say, sir, 100 years back in Hyderabad, flood has come. Last 110 years, there is no flood. So I thought our project also will be safe. So without flood. So I have not designed for flood. Or earthquake also I have not designed. But okay, you need not design. But what is the not it is a sixth sense or intrusions? On what document you are relied upon? So there the question comes. If it is earthquake, whether this city, this project, we have to refer it back to the technological regime, that map given, how they have bifurcated India into various earthquake zones. So have you at least followed that minimum standards to be followed in that earthquake zone? So, or this landslide, all these issues will come after the disaster will happen, after the disaster has happened. And proof checking, friends, now I think most of the academicians, they are doing proof checking. Of course, I have no what you call disrespect or whatever it is. Academicians are academicians, but it is a full-time job. If you see, as the complexity of the structures are increasing, like in serial number 5, the special structures. What are special structures? They are large stadium, assembly halls, tall structures, and even some hydraulic structures like water tanks, TV towers, chimneys. See, competency, that is what I have referring to a president of India who is a scientist. Core competency. What is the core competency of our institutes, academic institutes? He said it's a job above a designer. Means a super specialization is required. For example, in assembly hall, 5,000 people will be assembling and suddenly that building collapse, then fatal accidents are more. Then in the serial number 1, a 3-story structure. That is why they said proof checking is not required. Up to 7-story, yes, preliminary design proof checking may be required. Because loss of life will be limited there. Why they are afraid for corona today? Because you see worldwide nearing 4 lakh deaths. In India, we are 6,000 deaths. Not only the disaster which is bringing loss of property, but loss of life that makes the serious of the state to prosecute those people who are associated with the project. And National Building Code, of course, again, it started in 1970. I think revisions were going on. It ends up saying that so long these basics, what were being mentioned in this techno-legal regime and various legal provisions in various bylaws, model codes, and our Bureau of Standards and all these things. But again, they have said, so long these basic requirements are met, the choice of material, the choice of the method of design and construction is left to the ingenuity of the architect and the engineers and other experts engaged in such projects. Means again, they have given a free hand to do creativity and innovation in our profession. It's not that they are asking us to just follow the guidelines. So they have given a framework to follow, and they also said you think out of the box in terms of usage of durable materials and economical design, or design where speedy construction can happen, and construction where you can bring out mechanization or quality. All these parameters are our domain specific. So again, to make it 3 M's, one is material, methodology, and manpower. So again, the 3 M's are all with us only, with the civil engineering profession only. Here, this knowledge management is here. This slide, as we are going in the profession time, and we look forward for returns, more returns. It is there in all supply chain management, the stakeholders. So if it is, for example, a cement company or a construction chemical company, a concrete company, their product innovation will happen. Sometimes radical, sometimes fundamental, sometimes incremental. That is called manufacturing process. Then if it is a service provider, like as I said, a designer, earlier we used to do cash in situ. Now every city in this country is having this metro rail or this flyovers are all pre-segmental construction. Pre-segmental construction, which I have seen with my own eyes in 1997. It has came into this country in India at Sirsi flyover in Bangalore. But within 20 years, the service providers, the designers, the augmented industry associated with that one, today it is a commodity. It is no longer a product. It is a commodity. So the process innovation has happened in our urban infrastructure construction. So with our other bridges and other things also, like we are seeing, especially in Telangana, we have seen within 3-4 years, the Kaleshwaram project is beautifully constructed. So this type of projects used to take a decade or 2 decades. So the process innovations are happening. And why this subject techno-legal and more so specific to India? Because our players, industry stakeholders, they are globally known to take risk, challenging projects, whether it's L&T, Gammon, or you name anybody. They are even in conflict areas, conflict zones, countries which are in fact inflicted by what you call extremists also, like they are there in Sudan, they are there in Libya, they are there in Afghanistan, even in Sri Lanka when the LTT war is going on. But when it comes to our country, it is a lifeline. Construction is a lifeline. It is the second largest employment generator after agriculture. And if construction fails, entire economy will fail, and the repercussions will be socio-economic, political fabric. It will hamper this fabric of our country. So that is the reason, even in lockdown also, the first lockdown, they have given relaxations for road projects and some of the construction companies, construction sites, which are in green zone, orange zones, where labor are in situ. I mean, they need not come from outside if they have the residential facilities within that construction site. So government is giving a lot of emphasis, like our Modi Sarkar commitment, 5 trillion economy, out of which they said 100 lakh crores they are going to spend both in public private sectors in next 5 years. And already our before Corona, the finance minister has announced a pipeline of projects to the tune of 103 lakh crores. And the objective is housing for all. So it's a larger objective. And concrete, it is the second largest composite material. And Indian cement industry, it took 8 decades to reach 100 million metric ton capacity. In fact, engineer Anil is saying about their company's capacity and the expansion plans. So like that, we are next to China in producing, largest producer in the world, and second 100 tons, million metric tons took 11 years only, and third one took only just 3 years. And I think today we are nearing 400 million metric tons, and there are 200 and odd cement companies, cement plants, and 65 cement companies providing a direct employment 5 lakh people, and many more indirect employment till the bag reaches through retail, C&F agent, like that, even the one who is loading, unloading, like that. And we are exporting cement and clinker to various, so it's a global industry. Same case with ready mix. Now, with all this construction, with so much of emphasis, now one question comes when there is a litigation, especially between cement, concrete, designer, executor, like a builder, contractor, subcontractor, like that. What is concrete in construction? Is it a raw material or a finished product? So after a lot of research, legally, the term we have coined is it is an intermediate product. So it is only an intermediate product, is neither a finished product nor a raw material. So the ownership lies and the characteristics of the cement or the concrete varies as it changes hands from one stakeholder to another stakeholder. So here comes the another aspect of knowledge management is knowledge and products, innovation opportunities, and sustainable competitive edge. Friends, in our profession, it is like L1 tender, whether it is a material contract or designer global tendering or construction global contracts, it is all L1. That does not mean you need to give an inferior product. So it is sustainable competitive edge if you have by cost cutting or adopting best practices, whatever it is. That is where then comes is the people pay lakhs and crores of rupees to their CEOs and the human resources to how to keep our company competitive and yet increase our profit margins. So that the cost for productivity and enabling techniques. So knowledge dynamics keeps changing and it varies from project to project. Knowledge management is very essential. And this one slide, I can explain for 10 minutes also, but because of lack of time, I will just say 4 words. One is explicit knowledge, tacit knowledge, domain knowledge, and environmental knowledge. The domain knowledge, the moment we call ourselves as the engineer, we possess that domain knowledge. And what are that? They are all mentioned on the screen, that principles, theories, specifications, test results, research papers, like that. Then comes is the tacit knowledge, analytical and problem solving skills, functional skills, experience, intrusion, beliefs, feelings. Then environment knowledge, rules, regulations, policies, structures, customer explicit needs, better behavior, all these things. Then when you mature more, then you go to that corner of on the top of right side, environment knowledge and tacit knowledge. Then there is understanding market, customer implicit needs, cross-functional skills. This is where techno-legal cross-functional skills, multidisciplinary skills, multifunctional skills, multi-professional skills, initiative, empathy, emotional skills. See, sometimes we need not fight for our rights, though I am on the right side of law. Like today, though our employees are not coming, our workers are not coming, but it is our duty and responsibility to pay them on whatever possible in this lockdown period. So that is magnanimity. So that's how confidence building, team building, value system. So a professional, if you go from one corner to other corner, your knowledge levels has to increase. It's not that I am only an engineer, I will confine to engineer. It's not like that. In fact, the one who has written the Constitution, maybe not out of the context to quote, Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar said, I'm born as Hindu, but it is my choice to die as Hindu or not. And after he resigned as a law minister, he joined Buddhism, and that is how, by the time he died, so what is caste? Caste is only an occupation in our earlier. Today, engineering is one occupation, medicine is occupation. So I have changed profession from engineer to entrepreneurship to advocate. But yet, One core competency should be there to be successful. That gives the name, fame, and other things. Then technology process, it is the research, technology, then exploitation. See, exploitation is a wrong word. That is what I am saying. But choice of words, what we call in legal, when we are writing, drafting, or settling a case, petition, irrespective of its, whether it's taboo, that word exploitation. See, you have created a technology, but you have to exploit it. Marketing is different. Marketing is fulfilling a need. But the technology has no need. Create a need. This is what America is doing. Create a conflict between two countries. Sell the weapons. So exploiting technology is an art. Then what is that ultimately goes into the technology process is applied research, development research, fundamental research. Again, a combination of all these things. Then ultimately, a new product, a patent, a new societal need is met. And as a entrepreneur, as a commercial entity, profits and public service. You are fulfilling this goal. Then, of course, competition. You have to. This is a 5 model, 5 forces knowledge management model. This is there. It's a basic in management theory. Then, friends, I think I am halfway through. I'll rush from here. So, engineers, do we have professional immunity like doctors? As I said, no, because recently this RERA has come into picture, and construction. I have picked up 2-3 what you call the statements from this one.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you, but this suddenly this screen has gone.
Showing low bandwidth at your area, sir.
Huh?
It is suddenly showing low bandwidth at your area.
Is it okay now?
No, sir.
Power is there, and all system Wi-Fi is same Wi-Fi only.
Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. Wi-Fi disconnect. Oh, yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Okay. But PPT is not visible, sir. So
Is it okay?
it's getting loaded. Some small patches. I will mute your video, sir. Next time it appears, we will quickly run. I think it's showing very low bandwidth at your area.
So you can mute the video, no problem. Yeah. So I can start?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now, I have picked up certain 2 or 3 keywords from this REDA, so that how serious our in the sense our role and responsibility in the project. Maybe it is a real estate project like a housing or a gated community. So construction done by owner under strict supervision of architect, structural engineer, and site engineer. Then owner, builder, architect, structural engineer, site engineer are jointly and severally are held responsible structural stability and defects. So structural stability and defect, even architect is coming into the picture. So completion certificate by architect and structural stability certificate by engineer duly certifying that building is safe and construction as specified design. So once with this jargon, with this statement on their letterhead, if they are issuing a certificate, then that is what I am saying, mitigation of risk. So the risk is falling on them. So henceforth, the profession is becoming very, very serious. Law is going to catch them. How long the defective liability period means, again, REDA is clear about it. Defective liability period and all these things. So we have to read those these legal provisions before signing such certificates or documents. So what in the first part of our this one was seen in the new construction or concrete construction was how to safeguard these from natural calamities. But this building is not, it's a technical disaster, a man-made calamity because of incompetency of the people associated, professionals associated with this project. So that is how things are happening and the profession is getting bad name. So this is very popularly reported. It has become an issue in 2016 in Calcutta. A well-known company, IBRCL, they are constructing a flyover. Suddenly, a couple of spans got hello. Is it okay? Hello.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
There will be some disturbance, sir, because it has exceeded the time limit. Now we have put it up to 5:15 actually. So that bandwidth problem will be there.
Okay.
So we can just summarize it, kind of thing, no?
Fine, I'll do it.
Some disturbance in this thing, I believe, bandwidth problem. Now it's coming, but it will go on and off. That's all.
I'll finish it fast. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is again, I have taken very nationally reported, which are in public domain only. So that is why I'm using the project names and the people associated with it. So this is a very bad scenario where dead body vans will come and pick up and all these things are happening. Then, so this is what I was talking about the stakeholders. It is starting from building material manufacturers. Then you have some sort of a subcontractor, main contractor, then designer. Like that, it is if it is a project, a big project like a metro, like a metro rail, or maybe a big PPP project like a airport or something like that. So these all stakeholders get to panic, and each will sue other fellow to safeguard them. First is to safeguard them. Second is to recover the claims. So now the significance of this topic is purely to stay prepared for the future. It is not that I am creating a panic scenario so that suddenly when there is a panic about virus and corona, everyone was locked down, shut down, and forcefully put in homes. It is not like that. So I am not saying that leave the profession and go to some agriculture or something like that. Every profession, including agriculture, is also having risk. How to mitigate risk is the our human challenge. So So it is learn to minimize, if not avoid litigations. Hello, you are able to see?
We are able to see.
Yeah. So it is, if not to avoid, at least to minimize these litigations. And the litigations, as rightly our moderator was saying, it is among the building material suppliers, builders, contractors, subcontractors, who are indulged in with their clients and end users regarding quality, workmanship, performance, defective liability, etc. Services rendered by professionals or experts like structural engineers, quality certifiers, project management supervisors, etc. They are also coming to the gamut of these issues. As I was narrating the techno-legal and the REDA and all these things. Then valuable resources are wasted, unwanted tensions. It is like nothing but throwing good money to get bad money. Already that money is litigation money. If you are
Yeah, some issues. Yeah, now it's okay.
yeah. So the other thing is, see, the second is reputation is at stake. In this 24/7 media, so the individual or organization's reputation is at stake, and because of this today's 24/7 media, people sitting in their studios, they do the trial, not knowing the fact, and they will pass on the judgment, telling that this builder is wrong, this infrastructure company is wrong, and all these things. And brands gets diminished. See, after all, a human being like Srinivas Reddy is a personality, Srinivas Reddy is a brand, Ramco is a brand. But because of these things, suddenly it gets diminished overnight, like Maggie. We don't know what exactly happened. The true facts have not emerged. But overnight, brand of Maggie got killed. So people will not wait for due process. They want sensation. In the sensation, so how to resolve these disputes and avoid litigations? These opportunities do come with problems, but only there it is the legal provisions, dispute resolution mechanism to be understood, and when to start the litigation is an art. It is not that just to send a legal notice or just to drag him to court or not like that. So you follow this process, all are exhausted, then only if all bridges are burnt, bridges can be repaired, relations can be built. If they go behind repair, then you start the legal litigation. Once this dialogue fails, war starts. Like that is what Kurukshetra has happened, Mahabharata. 25,000 lakh people died because one dialogue failed. Then challenges, technical issues no longer are engineering problems. Once they enter into techno-legal, because engineering reports by experts, they only can be relied to an extent of expert opinion only in the eyes of judiciary. Like me, as a defense advocate or a prosecuting agency, we can challenge those things. That is how the country has evolved. We are going towards mature democracy. Gone from what is called Kap Panchayat, that system, to a proper judicial system. So I'll rush through it. So engineers, advocates, again, not only me, there are a lot of people are there across the country. Medical engineers, medical doctor advocates are there. So domain specific, even in 2015, I don't know how many people might have recognized in this country, commercial courts have started. Anything related to trade, commerce, industry, more than 1 crore dispute should land in a commercial court. There the expertise of the judge is also different. His mindset is different. Unlike a small claim suit or a rental or a property dispute, these are larger issues, commercial, and the time frames. Even the court ambience is also different. So our system is moving. The position of principles, statutes, case laws, policy and regulatory regimes, global best practices, these are all been brought in to avoid, minimize litigations. Of course, as I shown in couple of where human loss of life happens, or structure is collapsed, though the victim is not a non-living structure, but persons associated will be penalized and punished. So it's not like sometimes what happens is if the loss of life happens, then more people die, then only it will be highlighted. But in the absence, nobody is there. It is under construction building. But here no loss of life, but property loss is happened. Then litigation will start there. So implications of dispute and litigations on society, as I said, construction, concrete. This industry is very big industry, so we cannot afford to have litigations. Wherever the stakeholders are there, they should raise to the professional requirements rather than merry profit and competitiveness. The project delays and the business risks. Wide range of construction companies are in this problem. Supply chain sector gets affected, including material suppliers, service providers also. Thereby, the sustenance of growth of economy will drastically fall down. So it is not that just a lockdown or a demand or something like that. But if our speedy judiciary is not there, arbitration awards are not given on time, then also economy will slow down. This is a input I have taken, and based on my research, NHAI, only NHAI, 70,000 crores already adjudicated arbitration awards are pending with that authority. Now they have to take a call whether to challenge in regular court or honor these awards. Now I think they want to honor these awards by giving a haircut or something like that. So this is the scenario at a larger picture, at a micro level. Now, as I said, if there is a dispute, what is the criteria for selecting legal professionals or more so techno-legal professionals to secure the interest of all parties in equal measure? Means if it is an arbitrator or even if you are selecting a law firm or a legal advisor, it should be able to guide you properly, not only provoke you that you have the right, but other fellow may be also having right. Then you have to weigh that right. Give weightage to you, whether it is you are 80-20 or 50-50. What is it? Otherwise, he will not start a litigation. No. So you have to assess in equally even other party also. Why is he coming on us? So to reflect the views and suggestions to all stakeholders. It is not that telling that okay, you are only correct, the other fellows are not correct. So they may be to certain extent they are correct, but somewhere something maybe by oversight they missed it. So something like that, especially in commercial litigations. Okay, you take the service from him, free service or cost to cost service from in another project. So like that, there is and ultimately it is the effort to strike a fine balance. So if a professional is having such mindset of meeting these criteria, you select him rather than provoking him, provoking even we don't have any right. He will say, no sir, we will fight. If not here, up to Supreme Court, we will drag. We will harass him. We will see that that fellow will cry. He will come to you. He will touch your feet. All this nonsense we should not speak. So again, 6 forms of knowledge, that is context knowledge, experience, content knowledge, applied skill, insight, people knowledge. If you have these 6 skills, domain and legal provisions, that is techno and legal, that professional will be succeeding and doing justice to his client. And bringing certain things in Hyderabad, where I live. So here, unfortunately, in 1 year, if you see, between June to September, that is monsoon, I think this same scenario may be there in other cities also, because Hyderabad, we claim it is a 400-year-old city, but I don't think 400 year, neither a human being is alive, nor a building is alive, except that Charminar and Golconda, these two structures are alive, but history says it's a 400-year-old building, city. So what is that? In June 2016, 2 buildings collapsed. In July, 1 more building collapsed. In August, 1 more building collapsed. And September, in one building collapsed. Loss of life has happened. Same case in some of the major building collapses in Hyderabad. In 2013, 17 people died. In 2012, 3 people died. In 2010, 11 people died. As a government, after this type of things happened, what normally state will do or police will do? So what is of that technical tragedy? I said these are man-made tragedies. Police or local authorities take sumo moto cognizance, preliminary inquiry, FIR is registered against the accused. Finally, you have a media trial. Eyewitnesses makes a statement on electronic media telling that this builder is wrong, sir, this contractor is wrong, sir, all this nonsense he will speak, though he is a layman. Government standard response, officials to look into the matter and how the accident occurred. So that IAS officers will make this statement, politicians will make this statement. Everything will be evaluated as per the cause and effect. That will take a long time. And plethora of Supreme Court judgments dealing with the procedure and philosophy behind the construction litigations are followed or not. So, in a sense, one technical tragedy will land up in these problems. Again, I am coming to whose fault it is. Material, manpower, methodologies. Because I have given the designer, contractor, as I said in the National Building Code, that option. So now, again, we have to investigate on this to reach the truth and unfold the truth. Here, material, design, construction, whose fault it is, means whether they are in compliance with the standards, review available evidence to arrive at a preliminary conclusion. It appears a case of design and a construction flaws in many cases. This is only an assumption. People tell this as a prima facie, and material evidence also, soil movements, mix of materials, investigators to gather the evidence. In Hyderabad, I am just picked up from the Hindu 5/9/2016, as reported, the committee to bishops during construction mode. Which they have experts, but still the construction, what you call this type of technical tragedies are happening. The terms and conditions of this committee was being given, and the committee said we will give a report in 4 weeks. I think now nearing 4 years, closing to 4 years. I am not sure whether this report is been submitted, accepted, and put it in public domain or not. And there is another recent accident of a collapse of building, an arch canopy. I mean, recently means about a year or 2. I am not saying recent means yesterday, day before yesterday. So GHMC again, they said one committee has formed. It is a collective responsibility. The failure is because of their collective responsibility. So they said improper scaffolding, lack of supervision of site engineers, poor workmanship, faulty design, construction procedures. Means whatever has to go wrong, they have mentioned everything in that report. If I am the defense lawyer for that builder or whoever is being prosecuted, I will challenge these reports. So it is not a theory to be written. You have to unfold the truth. So many reasons cannot happen. If one fellow died, he should be very clear. Whether that fellow died with corona or with heart attack or what? Okay, maximum multi-function, multi-organ failure is one of the reasons, because he is already having a problem with 2-3 lungs or maybe heart and kidneys like that. Then rarest of rare, that is the, otherwise by accident, natural death, one reason will contribute to the death. And here in that IVRCL flyover incident, the state government has referred it to the some faculty, retired faculty in IIT Kharagpur. The committee concluded like this. It was reported again in Hindu in 2016. The committee says all at fault. Everyone is at fault. Led to the under construction of the flyover, so that then they said 27 people died. And the reasons: faulty design, poor quality of raw materials, lack of supervision. And they exaggerated this situation, telling that one of the worst civic disasters. I'm not getting the case, but what I'm saying is, if academicians get into such legal litigations, then see, that is the reason it is a techno-legal. So what happened? Poor fellows, officials, 10 officials, including directors, were arrested and behind bars. Police brought murder. Of course, later they have dropped, because murder charge means there is no criminal in the ingredient of crime. You should have a proper planning, an intention should be there, then procurement of some resources should be there, then execution should happen. This is a pure negligence, rash and negligence, not following the standards. So these they go and book cases against the infrastructure companies, but later on they will drop. But meantime, whatever damage to be happened, it will happen, and people will unnecessarily undergo.
Yeah, can you go to the final slide, sir? Because there's a problem with the connectivity. We can come to the. Almost 1 hour 40 minutes we have taken. I think we should have a one-day workshop, sir. Because that would be more interesting. Then we can.
This actually in auditorium. In auditorium it takes 3 hours presentation.
I know.
Yeah. So now these are all I am telling. Engineers were charged, saying that.
We can come to the conclusion part.
So now I will just close all. Anyway, these are all last time evidence in this norms in repairs, evidence in repairs.
We covered all this.
Yeah. Now, as laws are amended, they are incorporating new laws. I don't know how many people have seen this Motor Vehicle Act amendment. We are only interested in how old penalty and new penalty, but they have introduced a new section in 198. What it says is that the contractor, designated authority, consultant, concessionary, maintenance agency can be sued for any accident happening, all these things. So now, since ours is a functioning democracy and democracy is beautiful, new laws will come, new opportunities, new challenges will come. So this dam safety bill also, it is under consideration. Once it passes, then again new profession, new challenges, again new legal regime will come into the picture. Then our organization, what is this unique initiative where we are positioned in this construction industry to serve the various stakeholders. And what is it? Techno-legal assistance means investigation and trial of a crime, tracing, restraint and confiscation of the proceeds and instruments, giving evidence in the proceedings, citing the findings, joint committees formation, and whether it is expert committee or engineering committee or advocate commission or engineers commission need detailed cause and effect analysis. And then the concluding part is ultimately is how to resolve the disputes and minimize the litigation. So here there are certain 8 steps, 8 sessions somebody will undergo. He will give a paralegal. May not be a full-fledged advocate, at least a paralegal having some knowledge on the legal framework related to construction. So these are all related to consumers. There is a consumer in construction in this current legal framework. Then second is engineering, process and materials, professional ethics and code of conduct to avoid legal disputes. Third session is documentation and automation, creating value-based evidence. Fourth is control, quality assurance, forensic engineering. Then other is pre-litigation and ADR concepts and case studies. Then another session is about building technical and statutory procedures in everyday activities, ensuring profits with legal literacy to human resources at site. Then technical evidence versus expert evidence, which has a weightage, more weightage in the eyes of judiciary. Then other is litigation fighting and what is the court systems and all these things. So then ultimately, how do you balance about it? In practically, it is engineering, technology, legal and management. And I try to take this event as a fit place as a point to ponder, to examine the larger issues which are hampering our Indian economy, very specific to construction sector. And certain questions were raised on practices pre-disaster and post-disaster, that 1 decade where we have seen 3 or 4 earthquakes. Then what are the alternatives? And reviewing the current practices. I think this is how we have gone through this presentation. And clarity on legal framework, I try to bring it the legal position of law. Then divergent to convergent, this should be the first step. I'm just summarizing. So it is the will and wish of the end user will be converted into by a developer, a promoter or a builder. That is the engineering requirement. The consent means that the technology should be available with the designer, consultant and architect. So engineering, technology. Then choice about the material part means material management. Material sciences is the contractor, subcontractor, purchase department. And ultimately the facts is whether it's a good or bad is about the user requirements. That is the law. So this combination of engineering, technology, management will fall in the gamut of law of the land. That is called technological. And to conclude the session, I think though I was able to show some pictures, but legal profession is full of words only, narration only. There are very rarely we use pictures in our petitions or this one. So though I am an engineer, I used whatever possible way. I know it is a rigorous and unconventional topic for a civil engineer, and try to combine the academic industry with legal profession practices, and took some carefully selected examples from public domain, which will create some interest. And I think finally, all information and illustrations I acknowledge which I have taken from various sources. And to conclude today's topic, this one is that significant legal relief to the stakeholders of the construction industry, because the largest employment is generated after agriculture is from this one only. So government stakeholders are small players, but government and government authorities should have magnanimity not to challenge their awards again and again, putting government leaders and government advocates and killing this industry. So ultimately, the advocacy of this program deliberately on linear issues and remedies to identify weaknesses and challenges that need to be addressed. So with this, I wind up the presentation. Thank you very much for the patient hearing.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we should have one-day workshop. Actually, there are so many aspects, and sufficient time should have been given. But the thing is that you have covered all the major points actually, and you have brought in the relevance of techno-legal aspect in the field of construction, and also you touched upon material man related as well as the methods and processes related. I think which and a civil engineer should be able to look at it, and all the information that is available in the public domain, the cases that is available in the public domain, you were able to cover that. I think that was a very interesting topic on techno-legal case, which I am sure that all the professionals have, would have gained insight into. So any kind of questions, I would definitely send you by email, sir, which you can clarify because of the bandwidth issues. I think we will just interact through email. So with those few words, let me thank you once again, sir, for having taken your time off and having given an overview of the macro problems that is associated with this, and what is the role of a structural engineer, civil engineer in ensuring that the risk is mitigated. As you rightly point out, the mitigation of risk is very important, and for that we need to have a broader and a holistic understanding of the various factors that is involved in the area of concrete technology. And one important point that you had mentioned is that concrete is an intermediary, which is very kind of key takeaway for us also. And many of the jargons that is being used, I think some of it we must also understand so that we also have a broader perspective to that. All the construction professionals, I'm sure, would have gained insight into this. So with those, let me thank all the professionals who have logged in. And I thank you, sir, for having taken your time off from your busy schedule. And let us have one more program, which can be a 3 or 4 hour session. Probably you can cover a wide area of topics, sir. So thank you so much, sir.